Morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock, and this is the Upper Snake River Advisory Committee meeting number 4-25. Um, so we are, people are still trickling in, but let's go ahead and begin the meeting. We can all kind of see who's here. Introduction and attendance is first. So if anybody wants to specifically introduce themselves, they certainly can. Otherwise, we all kind of know who's here, but let's move in the interest of time. Let's move on in the agenda to item number 2, a weather forecast with NOAA. I think we're still waiting for them to join. So let's give it let's give it 2 more minutes.
Hey Cooper, I'm wondering
Mhm.
because you said did the meeting invite like on my machine? Um, did that go out to everybody? Because I'm wondering if they're using the old Zoom link and not the new one.
Yeah, that's where I went to first. I first clicked on the link that's in my Google Calendar,
Uh,
um, and then saw
Interesting.
that it was weird, and so then I went to the specific email that Cooper sent last or earlier this week, and that's how I'm here.
Why don't you send out a new another email to people telling them that, hey, you need to use this link and not any previous ones?
Good.
Because it's kind of a little surprised that's like, that we don't have more people on here.
Yeah.
Cooper, would it help you if I forward the link
Um,
or you have it available pretty easily?
yeah, it's around. Thank you, though,
Okay, of
Jennifer.
course.
Thank you. So let's give it another 2 or 3 minutes.
Just so you know, Cooper, I'm having someone log on to that meeting really quick,
Well,
and
that's
uh,
okay.
and just in case there's people there, that then they can tell them, hey, come to this one.
Yeah. Okay, well, so thanks everybody and for joining the correct Zoom link. Sorry for any confusion. Let's go ahead and now start the meeting. So this is the Upper Snake River Advisory Committee number 425. Introductions and attendance is the first item on the agenda. You know, we can all kind of see who's here if we want. In the interest of time, let's move on in the agenda to a weather forecast from NOAA.
Hi, Cooper.
Hey,
This is
Tim.
Tim Axford from
Yeah.
the National Weather Service. Yeah, I'm filling in for Mark today. Mark's out on a different meeting. So I'm going to fill in and answer all the weather questions you guys might have. So let me share my screen. All right,
Yeah.
you can see that?
We can see it. We can hear you.
Excellent. Yeah, so thanks for having us. My name's Tim with the National Weather Service. I wanted to start with this picture we took last week in the Teton Valley. Still very much winter up in the Teton Valley area in Victor. So a lot of snow on the ground still, but about average is what we see. So precipitation for March, just wanted to start out with those numbers. Right now, this is across the eastern Idaho, western Wyoming. Obviously, it varies dependent on terrain, anywhere from a quarter inch in the driest spots to over 5 inches, 6 inches in some of the wetter locations of the Teton Spine and the northern Wasatch. But as the upper snake as a whole goes, it was kind of above normal. This is percent of normal on the right here for March. The blues, the greens, the kind of indicate that near normal or above normal for most locations. Some yellows mixed in there, kind of indicating patchy below normal, but for the most part, everything was kind of above normal. And that's kind of what I wanted to drive home with this image as well. Anybody that's seen these in the past have become familiar with these graphics. Greens and blues are above normal for precipitation. This is for the month of March, and just a small pocket of below normal in the upper snake in the Wyoming side. But for the most part, everybody did fairly well for precipitation in March. So precipitation water year to date, this is kind of what we're looking at. So on the left, we have percent of normal. Again, those oranges, yellows are drier than normal. Basically anywhere from 75 to 90% of normal in kind of a patchwork in the upper snake reaches. A little bit, the more you go further south and west, the better overall things have fared. And that's kind of driven home by the graphic on the right as well. This is, again, similar graphic, but produced by our colleagues at the Northwest River Forecast Center. Areas in the yellow in the upper snake reaches 70 to 90% of normal, patches of a little bit better as you go further west and south, and then even better as you go, say, towards American Falls, Pocatello area, have done even better. So precipitation water year to date for some select locations. Again, just kind of driving that point home that further north and east you go, the kind of the drier it's been. Further south and west you go, the wetter it's been. So Island Park has been about 85% of precipitation for the normal, of normal precipitation. Jackson, 82%, and then Lava Hot Springs, 100% of normal, and then Burley, 125% of normal. Temperatures, so on the left we have the title's off just a little bit, but it should be March is the temperature departure for March. And then on the right is the water year to date. So on the left, you can see we continued that above normal temperature, above normal temperatures that we've been seeing for the entire water year to date. So on average, or on as a whole for the water year, we were at average or above average for most locations, and that continued for March in particular. So areas that saw kind of valley rain continued to see kind of valley rain. We did see some valley snow early on in March, but for the most part, those lower locations favored rain instead of snow. Now, this is the snow depth that we're looking at for now, what we have on the ground. Obviously, it's across much of the higher elevations, what we would expect this time of year. So the lower elevation snow is confined Ashton Hill North. Some of the eastern highlands, the Caribou Highlands, have some snow still in kind of those upper valley locations. But for the most part, we're losing all of the valley snow, kind of tapping into that mid-level snow melt. Now I'm going to flip to March here. This is what it was in March. So we've melted a pretty good chunk of snow. Now, as you might expect, some of these higher elevation snow locations, say in the Yellowstone Plateau, in the Tetons, actually grew a little bit. So as I flip back to April, we actually have a little bit more snow in the higher elevations. And that's kind of to be expected, as we don't typically hit our climatological peak of snow until early April for those locations. So even though we're losing it in the lower elevations, we still were gaining in the higher elevations. So going forward, drought status, what we're looking at, March compared to April, really not a lot of differences. Just some spillover from Nevada and Utah has kind of gone away in the southern Idaho locations. But for the most part, for the upper Snake, we're not looking at much of a difference from March to April. Now, as we zoom out a little bit, kind of the Snake River system as a whole, you can kind of see not a lot of changes. Again, just perhaps in that where we see the tri-state area combining, that kind of went away. But for the most part, everything else in the upper Snake is unaffected, besides for maybe a little improvement in the most high upper Snake reaches. So looking ahead, the short-term and long-term forecasts, we do have really dry and warm conditions today and Friday. We're actually looking at near record temperatures today and tomorrow. Pocatello might even flirt with 80 degrees, which is pretty unusual this time of year. Our earliest that we've ever hit 80 in Pocatello was April 9th. Back in 1996. So that just shows how abnormally warm it is. Last year, it took until late May for us to hit 80 degrees. So we're going to be flirting with 80 tomorrow. Even if we don't hit 80, we're going to be upper 70s tomorrow. Now, we do have a system coming in Saturday. That's going to bring cooler temperatures back in, but it's going to be back towards normal temperatures on Saturday. So that system that comes in, it's going to be fairly dry, but it's going to have a lot of wind with it as well. So look out for that. So forecast going forward the next couple of days, I've got a high elevation and a low elevation forecast. So there are these high temperatures that we're showing today and tomorrow. We're looking at mid to upper 70s, again, flirting with 80 in some locations. Higher elevations obviously knock down 10 to 15 degrees off of that. So Teton Pass, we're looking at, high of 62 tomorrow is pretty dramatic for this time of year. Then we have that system that comes in Saturday, fairly dry. On higher elevations could squeeze out some moisture with it, but for the low elevations, we're only looking at, say, a 20% chance of rain. Not much in the way of moisture with that. And then we dry out and warm back up going into next week, and that's kind of shown in both of these graphics here. Precipitation the next 7 days, it looks fairly dry. So we have that kind of blip of a system Saturday that's going to produce a little bit of moisture, especially in the higher elevations. Zoomed in graphic here on the right for Idaho. Most valley locations are not going to receive much in the way of wetting precipitation. Mid elevations could see maybe a 1/10 of an inch, and then the higher elevations maybe up to a 1/4 of an inch along the spine of the Tetons and higher. But overall, we're looking at fairly dry conditions for the next week or so. Going out a little bit further than a week, it's that 6 to 10 day outlook. So much of next week. We continue that below normal precipitation outlook and above normal temperatures. So again, that blip on Saturday of a system that comes through is only going to knock temperatures back down for a little bit, but then we'll start to dry out and warm back up going into the latter part of next week. Going a little bit further out, that 2-week outlook, very much the same, and we're in that climatologically wet time of year. So seeing below normal precipitation and above normal temperatures is not necessarily a great thing for building water supply. We've had a pretty good year so far, but we'd like to continue that on if we can, of course. But right now, the crystal ball in that 2-week time period is below normal for precip and above normal for temperatures. 3 to 4 week outlook going end of April, early May. Signs of below normal precipitation continue, and then above normal temperatures continue as well. So we're going to continue to see that snow melt accelerate as we go forward. And then broken record, it feels like, but that 3-month outlook, May, June, July, going into early summer, below normal precipitation and above normal temperatures are favored. So obviously going into what we see as our fire season and going into the drier time period, we're gonna see below normal temperature or below normal precipitation and above normal temperatures continue on. So hopefully we don't dry out too quickly for those fire concerns and for those water supply concerns, but it does look like all things considered, it's favored to start that way through summer. So if there are any questions or comments, I'll take those now. Mark is our hydrologist. You can reach him at his email here, but I'll take any questions as well.
Thank you, Tim. And are there any questions for Tim? Hearing none, I want to say thanks again to Tim. And we'll move on in the agenda to snowpack and stream flow forecasts with the NRCS.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Aaron. Yep, we can see you. We can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you, Cooper. All right. Looks like a beautiful day in the Tetons, Bluebird Day. Pretty similar snow coverage from the webcam as last year. Looking at the Blackfoot, I'm gonna start off with looking at the Blackfoot basin, sub-basin. I just want to point out that a lot of our graphs are showing erroneous data right now. That big drop that you see in this image is not real. The GO satellite that we used to transmit our data was out of service yesterday. So we're working on filling in those gaps as that data trickles in and doing some editing. So you'll probably see some funkiness in the data for the next couple of days as we work through all of that missing data. What I'd also like to point out is that in the southern part of the basin, it looks like snowpack peaked around March 24th. That's that little peak. And then we had the decline with that 80-degree weather, or probably like 60, 70-degree weather in this part of the state during the last part of March. And then we've stalled out on melt. It's been stabilizing. And then we've been quite above normal in these basins, but not as much as last year, which is that orange line on the graph. Looking at one of the northern basins, those are still slowly accumulating SWE. Not much since the mid-March storms. It's been pretty dry in these basins. So our advantage over percent of normal has been declining with that dry weather. And we're kind of on par with 2024 snow levels in these upper basins. So on the left, we've got March 24th, which is the peak snowpack in those southern basins. Willow, and then on the right is yesterday, April 8th. And what I'd like to point out is that the peak snowpack in the southern basins, Willow peaked at about 120% of normal, Blackfoot at 135% of normal, and Portneuf at 134% of normal. We really, as you move into the spring weather, these percent of normal graphs start more representing the rate of melt, like how quickly are we melting in a reference to the 30-year median. So this is the time of year that these percent of normal graphs start to be a little bit off. And I recommend looking at those snow accumulation plots to get a better sense of what the actual percent of normal looks like compared to the peak. We saw in the Willow that percent of normal is going up. That's just because normally that basin is melting out right now, and it's not melting out right at the moment. So that number's gone up. Portneuf and Blackfoot actually did have experienced some little SWE loss. So those percent of normals, 127%, 129% of normal represent that SWE loss over the last part of March. In the northern part of the basin, they're holding pretty steady. The percentages have declined a little bit just because there hasn't been much snow accumulation over the last few weeks. So their percent of normals is declining just because we're would normally be accumulating more snow during this time period. So just another look at that Willow Southern Basin as a representative for that area. We did experience like a few inches of SWE loss in that area, as Tim was showing. A lot of that low elevation snow melted, and some into the mid elevations as well. But then it's stagnated over the last few days. It's out of the cool temperatures, and we're kind of posed for more melting at this point. And I think the other big thing is to just point out how much more snow is in these basins compared to 2024, which I'm going to show on my next slide. So on the left, we've got the snowpack for 2025 versus 2024 on the right. And so I've got, this is just the April 1 comparison to each other. And so if we compare April 1 to April 1 in the northern basins, which is northern basins peaked around April 1st last year, we can see that we have a little bit more snow in these more northern basins compared to last year, especially in the south, like Hoback, 108% versus 94% last year, Gravant, 106% this year versus 93% of last year. And the southern basins we'll compare on the next slide. So this is the apples to apples comparison for peak snowpack to peak snowpack from 2025 to 2024 in the southern basins. So last year, Portneuf Basin had 143% of normal compared to 134% of normal. Blackfoot, 154% of normal last year versus 135% normal this year. And, you know, a big difference in the Willow, as we can see on those snow accumulation plots. It was 120% this year, 147% last year. So big change in the snowpack in the southern basins compared to last year. Pretty comparable snowpack in the northern basins. A little bit better this year for the northern basins. And I'd be remiss if I didn't show Snake River above Heisey. So that little decline in there is that erroneous data, but you can see that we did have a little bit of snowmelt overall in the basin above Palisades, and then it's slowed down with the cooler weather. But we did have we have more snow in these basins compared to last year in these northern basins. As Tim was talking about, we're entering another dry period. We're getting about 50 to 75% of the moisture in the upper Snake over the next 5 days compared to normal. Going to be hot and dry. So what does that mean for melting? On the left, we've got percent of water year peak. So how does the snowpack right now compare to the peak snowpack for this year? So any number below 100% is showing where melt is occurring. We see at Sheep Mountain in the Willow Basin at 89%, at Island Park in the Henry's Fork Teton at 89%. And just for the most part, a lot of these snowtail sites are not showing aren't showing very much melt quite yet. But on the right is the snow density. And as you can see, we're in the high upper 30% to 40%, which means that the snowpack is pretty much reached its isothermal temperature. So it's the same temperature throughout the whole snowpack. It's considered ripe, which means that it's ready to melt. We're really on the cusp of melting. And I think with these warm temperatures, that warm and dry weather conditions that are going to rise, that we're going to see the snow melt starting to come off of that mid elevations and high elevations quite significantly over the next 2 weeks, because the snowpack is ready for those warmer temperatures to affect it. In terms of stream flow, what we're seeing is just a slight increase in stream flow. We're about the same level at 364 cubic feet per second at the Snake River, at Jackson Lake, at Flag Ranch. So this is the unregulated portion of the upper basin that flows into Jackson Lake. You can see compared to last year, we haven't really begun our snowmelt season as indicated by the snow-till stations. You see a little bump in stream flow on the March 28th time period. That just represents that we did get a little bit of melt during that time period entering the streams, but definitely we're not in our melt period yet. The streams aren't responding to snowpack melting yet. This is looking just at the last month or so at the Snake River at Flag Ranch. You can see we did get a little bit of peak at that March melting. And then right now the spikiness of the stream flow is representing the diurnal fluctuation. So the warming during the day and the cooling at night. So the snowpack is, we're getting a little bit of melt during the day, but not much melt at night. And we'll see that shift change over the next 7 to 10 days. In terms of stream flow down south, that stream flow is decreasing, but is forecasted to increase significantly with the next weather. So again, the melt in the southern part of the basin is starting much more in earnest compared to the northern basins, and we'll see that response in the stream flow over the next 7 days or so. In terms of soil moisture, that big spike at the end is also, I would say, erroneous data. But we have seen an increase in soil moisture in the Upper Snake Basin over the last month. We're still in the 10th to 30th percentile, so we're still dry soils, especially compared to last year, which is that orange line, and compared to the median. So overall, we do have drier than normal soils in the Upper Snake, but we have seen some improvement over the last month. This is looking at the satellite-based products, 2 different ones. The orange colors indicate where drier than normal soils exist and wetter than normal soils exist. Are the blue colors and blue and green. We do see quite a bit of improvement in the Willow, Blackfoot, Portneuf area. Those are wetter than normal soils, and all the satellite products agree on that. We do see dry soils in the headwaters of the Snake and a little bit wetter soils in the Henry's Fork Teton area. So this, could impact runoff, where we might see reduced runoff in the areas where the dry soils are soaking up the snowmelt. It depends how fast it comes off, but we could see a reduction in our stream flow volumes due to these dry soils. Looking at our stream flow forecasts across the region. So this is the April through July stream flow period for the April 1 forecast. We see below normal stream flow forecasted in the Henry Fork and Falls River. Those are about 86-87% normal. In the Upper Snake, Snake River Flag Ranch at 91% normal. And then basically get more water as you move farther south, reflecting those higher than normal snowpack conditions in the south. So Snake River at Heisey is 112% normal. Willow Creek at Ryrie is 160% normal. Last year was forecasted to be 250% normal. So still a reduction compared to last year, but still well above normal. And then above normal for stream flow forecast in that southern part of the basin above Palisades, so in the Grays River and Salt River. Looking at the stream flow forecast at Heisey, we're forecasting 3,490 calf for the April through July period. That's a 270 calf increase from the March 1 forecast. And as a reflection of that above normal snow accumulation during the month. So we saw a 9% increase in that forecast. So we're forecasting the stream flow at 112% of normal for the Snake River at high C. And that is what I have for today. And so I can take any questions if there are any. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions? Hearing none, thanks again, Aaron. Thanks a lot. And the next item on the agenda is water supply operations, water supply and operations update with the Bureau of Reclamation. Hey, Brian, I heard you.
Hey Cooper, is this audio working?
Yep, we can hear you now. I can see you.
Okay. I apologize. I don't know. My mic's been acting up. Let's
Yeah,
see.
no worries. Yeah,
Okay,
now
so-
we can see your screen. Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. So I'll be going over conditions in the basin and different drivers in the system and our plan here. So first to go over reservoir conditions in the system. System altogether is 86% full. And the system extends from Wyoming, Jackson Lake, and then all the other reservoirs in Idaho, Grassy Lake being in Wyoming. But altogether, the system is 86% full. There's 3.48 million acre feet of storage currently in the system. That's 562,000 acre feet left to fill, or it gets to 100% full. And that 3.48 map in the system is 118% of average and 117% of median. We have 116,000 acre feet less than last year, but 508,000 acre feet more than median. So it's a pretty good storage year this year, and we'll see that increase here. Conditions in the lower system are the largest driver here for discussions today. Lake Walcott's at 94%, American Falls is at 97%. Those are continuing to fill. Diversions in the lower valley have been increasing since late March, and outflow from Minidoka this morning was about 2,100 CFS. Looking at the graph of total system storage trend, you can see over the winter time we were above median all winter, and we're probably going to intersect where 2024 levels were in about mid-April there, and then just see how things trend here. Last year, the system barely filled, and so anticipate seeing a lull here in gain in the storage in the system, just as diversions kick on and any FRM changes at Palisades, but probably level out and then see a little bit of increase when the Snake River peaks in outflow in that late May, early June timeframe. But we'll have to see how that plays out, but that's typically what happens. Looking at snowpack, Aaron covered this. Just wanted to highlight the snowpack is pretty close to last year. We're currently sitting at 100% of median peak SWE. So it's a good snow year. There's a couple spots throughout the winter that were iffy, but good to see things recover there and be really close to median there. Going over April forecast, these are our updated forecasts as of last week. High C, the coordinated forecast with the core came in at 102%. That's 3,380 cap. So that is the forecast that we're operating to at Jackson and Palisades. You can see the increase from March went from 94% up to 102% in April. So sizable increase there, which is driving the operations at Palisades that began this week. Jackson Lake forecast went from 86% last month to 94% this month. You can see the other ones. Bribery went from 106 to 119%. Looking closer at each reservoir and its operations, outflow from Jackson Lake, we decreased from about 500 CFS down to 280 CFS this week because the Lower Valley system was projected to fill, and there was a window to store some more water here in April after coordinating with the Corps. So outflow reduced down to 280 this week, and we're just below the winter space requirement there, so we'll see that rise up in the April timeframe. Anticipating getting to those dynamic curves sometime in late April or early May, and then following those up if they're still in place based on the forecast when we get to May. Looking at Palisades, inflow is currently about 3,000 CFS. We've messaged out that outflow from Palisades was increased this week from 900 CFS up to 6,000 CFS. So by the end of day today, outflow will be 6,000 from Palisades. Looking at the flood curves, the black and gray lines are the curves that are driven by the 102% forecast that was coordinated for April. And so the solid curve is what's followed when unregulated flow into Palisades is less than 20,000, and then dashed if it's greater than 20,000. And then looking at a dry scenario, this is just a placeholder in here to see what it looks like if, and it does look likely that we'll have a dry April. So once we get in, it looks like we're going to be looking at mid-month forecast next week. And then when we get to our May forecast, that forecast could drop off. And so just keeping this as a placeholder in here to see where storage in Palisades might need to be in May if we do get a super dry April. So currently storage would need to be drafted down by about 75,000 acre feet if this dry scenario comes to be for May. So things are looking good for flow at least staying where it's at or increasing from Palisades here for FRM over the next month or so. But currently we are anticipating these black lines, aiming to follow those until our forecast changes. So the outlook for Palisades is likely FRM operations through the rest of April, May, and a portion of June here. And then moving downstream to American Falls, this is a product from the Weather Service that shows projected inflow into American Falls. So inflow is about 4,000 CFS currently, and with the increases from Palisades in a few days, inflow into American Falls will be about 9,000 CFS. There are some potential increases in stream flow based on runoff, but I think some of that will have to wait and see how that plays into inflow into American Falls. But the Palisades increases are driving inflow into American Falls to increase by about 5,000 CFS here. To go over Lower Valley Reservoir conditions and operations, and then our current plan, there's about 50,000 acre feet of space left to fill in the Lower Valley reservoirs. So that's Lake Walcott and American Falls Reservoir, space left to fill there. With the inflow to American Falls projected to go from about 3,500 to 4,000 up to 10,000 over the next 10 days. Lower Valley depletions are about 3,000 CFS. That it counts for diversions and a little bit of gain in the Lower Valley and the river. So eventually we would see a gain in the reservoir contents in the Lower Valley of about 12,000 acre feet per day. So if you take that into account with the 50,000 acre feet of space left, we would fill within 6 or 7 days, depending on how irrigation demand comes on. So it looks like there's excess in the system, but we do anticipate the fill rate into that 50,000 to vary depending on the runoff and diversions. So some of the things we'll have to watch close on how that develops. But our current plan is to have Minidoka outflow be at least 2,700 CFS on Friday morning. And that's an increase up from the current 2,100. And that increase up to 2,700 correlates to Reclamation's power right at Minidoka. So whether or not that would be the main driver for spill, it's part of the conversation, but we would meet the power right at Minidoka by Friday morning. And we're anticipating a small amount of spill to occur on Friday, and on the order of, say, 10 to 50 CFS. And this was discussed yesterday at the Committee 9 River and Reservoir Operations Subcommittee meeting, where Reclamation meets with Water District 1, Water Master, and the Committee 9 to talk about storage conditions and plans and what spill outlook looks like. That spill, the aim there is to see at least some flow register on the river gauge, and have a consistent flow. So not on and off, but have it consistently on at lower levels for the next future until we determine that there's not excess, and then we'll get shut off. So the plan currently is to, well, due to 1 and 2 being in place, Reclamation plans to waive the winter water savings provisions tomorrow. So we would sign the letter similar to one last year and communicate that out to space holders, which the spill along with the waiving the water savings would increase the recharge capacity in the system. And I'm sure Wes will have more on that a little later, but that's currently our plan for operations in the lower valley. Looking at diversions here. So diversions are just above 3,000 CFS in the system, primarily the lower valley, but anticipate the upper valley starting to turn on too. So diversion in the system increased pretty sharply in March and April. And so I've got a projected line here showing what diversions could do over the next week or two. And this is taking the similar pattern of increase from last year. So we're about a week later in diversion levels compared to last year, but anticipate those to continue to increase, especially with the warm and dry conditions. So the range of inflow into American Falls is about 9,000 CFS. So with that level of inflow and the diversions start to increase at some point, diversions are going to overtake the inflow, and we'll peak out at a storage in American Falls and Lake Walcott close to full. We're not aiming to get 100% full right away here, but we are aiming to get pretty close to full here. So the waiving of winter water savings and the spill coincides with the storage rights filling. So we'll have to see how this trends, and this is just diversions. Anticipate recharge increasing. So any increases in recharge would essentially hasten the time of those American Falls and Lake Walcott maxing out at storage. So if recharge comes on, we could peak out at, say, 10,000 or 20,000 acre feet from full in the lower valley. Just depends on how irrigation demand trends and recharge comes on. And then looking at the flow augmentation outlook, the April forecast came in at 102%. So for that time frame, April through July, that's the coordinated forecast for the April to July was 102. And so we correlate that to the April through September high sea runoff forecast. And so it also is 102%, came in at 3,936. So we're landing in this column here and correlating with this carryover from last year. We're looking at 150,000 acre feet of rental rainbow chart water from Water District 1 this year. That's a part of our flow augmentation program. We're anticipating about 469,000 acre feet of total flow augmentation delivered out of the Snake system, portion of which comes above Milner. The others come below into the Brownlee Reservoir. And I believe that's all I had for content. So Cooper, we can go back over everything folks like, or proceed.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Brian?
Hey, Brian, this is Frank at Idaho Power. How's it going?
Okay, good.
Could you speak a little more to how the mid-month will be used to adjust the Palisades operations? Is that going to be fully adopted and then reset the curves, or will that be just an early informational look, and will the current forecast be operated to in the latter half of April? I think that looks like it could change things quite a bit at Palisades. So just kind of curious if we have a little more information on when that might occur, and what reclamation is thinking that could do to Palisades operations.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Let me go back to Palisades here. So Palisades, so this is a dry scenario, and this is a current. So the April forecast came in 102%. We're held to this black line currently. We can all see that it's going to be dry for April. The mid-month forecast will be being looked at next week by Reclamation's regional office, and then we'll for sure do a May forecast. The mid-April forecast may be formalized, it may not be formalized. I think that's still to get worked out between Reclamation and the Corps. But if it's formal or informal, I think it'll be the main driver for operations at Palisades. So I don't see a decrease in outflow from Palisades. If anything, an increase in outflow, because even if we had the 94%, we'd have to get down to this point down here. So passing inflow plus an additional 50 to 75,000 acre feet would be passed downstream. So we'll have to move throughout the window. Nothing set in stone. It's just ongoing, developing discussions as the system develops here.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And then maybe a follow-up. I know nothing's maybe set in stone, but if things are going to stay probably at 6,000, and then at least need to hold space, if not draft a little bit under a dry scenario, is there any range of outflows that you guys are looking at with the Corps for next week? If there's any guidance on that, if you guys are thinking 8,000-10,000, just kind of curious where some of that might be, if there's any info on where that might go.
Yeah, it hasn't landed. Just early looks at maybe a few thousand acre, a few thousand CFS additional, but it hasn't been finalized, and we'll have to see where discussions go with mid-month and where that decision goes. But for right now, there's no talk of decrease. There's only talk of making an increase.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for going through that.
Yeah, and I think that'll play into how the changing dynamic with FRM at Palisades, along with the changing diversions and recharge increasing. It's going to kind of ebb and flow and have some cycle to it that we'll have to work through over the next month as things increase. I mean, one of the biggest variables right now is how much recharge is available physically to take water, and how much they eventually do take water. I think that's a large driver for what happens with that inflow into American Falls over the next week and a half.
Good. Are there any other questions for Brian? Hearing none, thanks a lot, Brian.
Thanks.
And we'll move on in the agenda to an Idaho Power Company operations update.
Yeah, thanks, Cooper. This is John. I didn't have any official slides, but was just going to mention a couple of the things that I typically talk about. So, we've been following the Swan Falls AADF really closely this year, like always, and flows have been up again. It's been awesome to see, and so second year in a row, of kind of like back-to-back improvement. For where those are at, relative to kind of where they were at during the drought years of 2001, 2002, 22. Or 2021, 2022. Anyways, the Army Corps of Engineers has released their flood risk management operations for us. So Brownlee is kind of the one unique spot in the Columbia River Basin with a above normal forecast. So 112% of normal, 5.8 million acre feet was the forecast there. And that results in basically an end of April elevation target of 2050. We're about, 4 feet below that right now. So looking really good in order to meet our end of April target and, anticipate just kind of releasing similar to what our current releases are out of Hell's Canyon right now in order to meet that of about 30,000 CFS. That's all I had. If anyone had any questions.
Thanks, John. Are there any questions for Idaho Power? Okay, hearing none. Thanks again, John, and we'll move on in the agenda to Water District 1.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So as far as water right priorities go, we are still currently filling the American Falls 1921 water right. That water right has almost completely filled now. We've got maybe a week approximately until that water right fills. Once American Falls fills, the next two, well, I should also mention that Henry's Lake 1917 is still also currently filling, taking all inflows that are coming into Henry's Lake. Once American Falls fills, the Palisades 1931 or 1939 and Island Park 1935 water rights will come into priority and take all available natural flow when that happens. The Lake Walcott, Jackson Lake, Palisades winter water savings, and American Falls winter water savings storage rights have all completely filled. So that's natural flow water. There will be no natural flow available for water rights junior to these reservoirs for at least a month out, it looks like. So to kind of transition on to a key topic that Brian brought up with the planned Milner spill that's going to occur on Friday. So that's a planned spill of storage water. Typically when a Milner spill event of storage water like this happens, it allows the water master to relax storage water administration and allow storage water to be diverted for recharge. So that is again going to happen this year once Milner spill commences. With the lag times associated with the accounting program, that means storage water is currently available above Minidoka. So those Minidoka canals could start diverting storage water for recharge, and canals upstream from that can start diverting storage water for recharge. And then tomorrow, of course, then those canals below Minidoka, once the spill starts, it also diverts storage water for recharge. The once Milner spill ceases, any storage use will be reset back down to 0. So, again, kind of back to Brian's point, the duration of Milner spill is not known yet. It looks like a week. The plan, as I understand it, is that, we're pretty solid for spilling for about a week. More or further than a week out is, less clear. It's going to be important for any canals that do participate in managed recharge to follow the projected priorities on Water District 1's website. We will be updating that with the newest information we have each weekday with the status of spill. It's going to be also important for any canals conducting managed recharge to be aware of the lag times associated with the accounting of that storage use. So for the Minidoka canals, there's a 1-day lag. For canals from Shelley to Blackfoot, there's a 3-day lag. For canals from Heisey to Shelley, Rexburg to Manan, and Willow Creek, there's a 4-day lag. And for canals on the Henry's Fork upstream from Rexburg, including the Teton River, there's a 5-day lag. So what that means is any managed recharge that occurs after Milner spill ceases may be counted against storage allocations this upcoming year. So it's just important for those canals to be aware. In other words, if spill stops on, let's say, just make up a number, April 20th, you need to subtract that number of days to know when a canal in that reach needs to be off in order for that spill to not potentially count against upcoming allocations. Anyway, kind of the highlight of that is be aware of the potential and follow Water District 1's website closely, as we will be giving the updated information with as much time notices as we can. There are other implications of Milner spill related to rental pool activities that happened in the previous year. So for instance, 2024 common pool rentals will not be deducted from allocations this year. That includes the Bureau of Reclamation's 150,000 acre foot rental of flow augmentation last year will not be reduced from allocations. All the proceeds collected from the rental pool in 2024 will be paid out to participants according to their space. Now it's important to realize that's different than this year's common pool, which Brian showed the slide for, 150,000 acre feet to be delivered this year. That may be deducted out of 2026 allocations, and we'll have to wait and see, if that occurs. If we have a spill, it won't, but that's a 2026 allocation question. Any private leases any space evacuated for private leases in 2024 or for the 2024 extraordinary circumstance pool will not be held in last to fill for 2025 allocations. Again, storage use will be set to 0 once Milner spill ceases, and only storage diversion after spill ceases will potentially count against 2025 storage supplies. And then for the few diversions that do have water rights with annual volume limits, those water rights will not begin accruing toward those volume limits until Milner spill ceases. Let's see. It's important, kind of back to operations that Brian laid out. It's important for any canals to report planned turn-ons, whether it be for recharge or for irrigation. It's really important to communicate that information, either to the Bureau of Reclamation or to Water District 1. That way, any planned turn-ons and rates of turn-on can be incorporated into the operation and maximize the efficiency of that operation. From just kind of a historical perspective, where we are, at least where we were at the beginning of April, as far as reservoir contents and snowpack, was similar to 2009 and 2019. In those years, all storage rights filled on paper. Water was spilled past Milner for several weeks, and the day of allocation occurred in late June. Now, it's important to note that the past performance is no guarantee of the future results. You know, the weather is going to play a key role there. You know, if things turn hot and dry, like, you know, looks like it could happen, that can play a really pivotal role. So it's, you know, very important to track conditions real time. But, you know, that is how a few historical years played out that were similar. So with that, that's all I've got.
Hey, Craig, thanks. Are there any questions for Craig? Okay, hearing none, thanks again, Craig. And we'll move on in the agenda to a Water Resource Board managed recharge operations update.
Thanks, Cooper.
All
Once
right,
again,
thanks. Yeah,
you
we
can
can
hear
see
and
and
see
hear you.
okay. Thank you. Well, the recharge program has been off for a while, and the recharge on the snake system turned off on March 25th, and the recharge on the wood system turned off on March 31st. Currently, there's 0 diversions of recharge in the lower valley and upper valley, and the total acre feet so far for the snake system is 119,874 acre feet. And then below are some of the total values for the different canals, where AFRD2 is at 97,299 and SWID 12,839, Twin Falls 9,736, and the Big Wood Canal Company at 884 acre feet. The season's flow rate diversion chart is patterned as such, and so right now we are currently turned off, and will likely get turned back on, I guess, today in the upper valley and tomorrow in the lower valley. And on that note, if there's any questions, feel free to chime in, but I'd also like to show a spreadsheet for the lower valley numbers, and to get the input from some of our operators to see if these numbers look reasonable for the irrigation diversions over on the left in blue, which are current, and then the possible recharge diversions in green. Our total lower valley recharge capacity is in the pink purple, but and then the total combined irrigation plus recharge down below out of at least American Falls. And I'd just like to put this out to all the participants in the lower valley to see if these numbers look realistic. AFRD2 has indicated they plan on irrigation diversions tomorrow, starting at 200 CFS over in the blue section.
Yeah, so Jeremy, yep.
This is Kevin Lakey from AFRD2. Yeah, Neil, we're going to try to shoot for that.
Okay.
Yeah, Neil, this is Jeremy. So BID's canal gauge is misreading. Their current diversion is 309.
Oh, BID is 309?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's also a gauge misreading on the crosscut between Owner Gooding and Northside. That's misreading that we're editing in real time. So that's something I'd point out as well, as accurate canal gauging is extremely important. And then also kind of accurate communication is important as well, because we had understood that AFRD was going to wait until Saturday to turn on 200 CFS. So just lots of communication needed. But I appreciate everyone.
Well, I'll let Kevin Lakey chime in on that. We just had a discussion today and it threw that out as a possibility. I'm not sure if they're solidified on that or not, but
No, let me talk to Ryan Gailey first, make sure he's ready, but we could.
Oh, okay.
Jeremy, is that a problem if we start tomorrow instead of on Saturday?
I don't think it's a problem. I just, just would highlight the need for accurate information. Very touch and go this year.
Yeah.
Extremely accurate, and coordination is needed. So I appreciate you. Nope, not a big deal.
Do you need me to call you or work with Lewis?
I'd recommend working with Lewis.
Okay.
And Lewis can relay it.
All right.
So, is the recharge values possible for tomorrow realistic at about 600 CFS total, with 50 spilling at Milner and 460 into AFRD2 and BID and SWID values?
I think if Milner Gooding turns on 200 tomorrow, that number would go down to 400. Yep.
So can Milner Gooding turn on irrigation water and recharge water?
Yes, I believe so.
And Kevin, can you receive approximately 460 CFS recharge water to turn into MP29 and 31 sites, plus your 200 irrigation?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can, but let me double check with Ryan.
Okay. So we may have 600 CFS total tomorrow for recharge in the lower valley. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, that's how much excess that we're planning to send, and then whatever irrigation takes from that, the number will be smaller.
And if AFRD2 can't take the amount of water that we kind of have listed here, Northside Canal has indicated that they have an off canal site that they could help accommodate some of those diversions.
Okay, sounds good, Neil. And it looks to me like kind of the idea you've laid out here is the partitioning would be based upon kind of proportional capacity. Is that kind of what you're laying out here?
Yeah, trying to. I couldn't hear the first part of what you said.
I think that's been a question, is just how the water is going to be distributed at Milner when there's excess available, with 50 going below for the physical signal, and then the rest. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
That helps me.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. That's it.
So this is Wesley. I'll jump in a little bit. Just so we're clear, the thought is that we'll hold BID and SWID constant at those numbers. And then it's, as far as divvying up the rest, the current plan is to go with AFRD2, and we have an idea of, so this table kind of shows what that capacity is. Obviously, a lot's going to depend on what they're able to, and then, work north side in as we need. That's at least our current thought. But that'll kind of play out as we go.
I guess Wesley, if you don't mind, I might chime in with a question. Based on what Reclamation is seeing for inflows to American Falls out into the near term next week, going up 5,000 CFS. And then with some of the Palisades operations, as we talked about, only needing to likely increase from here. I guess I'm almost wondering if there's maybe an opportunity to get more lower valley recharge sooner instead of having to wait until American Falls is plumb full and then pass an amount of flow that is going to exceed recharge capacity. And I know that there's always risks on these things, but sure looks like there could be an opportunity to get some more recharge done, which we would definitely support if it looks very likely that there's going to be excess of thousands of CFS maybe when American Falls fills. I don't know. I'll just put that out there for for maybe some discussion, but that's something that we would definitely support. If that's possible to do operationally, seems like it could potentially be, instead of having a big slug of water just a little ways down the road.
Yeah, Frank, I think the crux of that question comes down to the uncertainty in the Palisades operation. Without a verified increase next week, 600 is the best move for this week to get things rolling, and then next week adjusting from there. I understand your question perfectly, and a week from now we might look back and be like there may have been a better solution, but the 600 move this week seems to fit the system the best. And to further this conversation, we're also interested in tracking what the upper valley capacity is. I'm hoping that Neil will touch on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'll give a shot at that one. So this year's a little bit different. There's numerous canals that are contracting with the groundwater districts, and so we're not specifically tracking what's going on there. Obviously, we're just tracking what the board's doing. From past, the max that I've seen the Upper Valley do is around that 1,600 CFS as far as just diverting for recharge. That normally occurs early in the year. Once we get at this point in time, when that they're starting to ramp up their irrigation deliveries, those start diminishing rapidly. And so, at least from our end, through the standards and procedures that we have, we've kind of figured out a methodology for determining like when canals would normally turn on and when they're being able to use for recharge. I'm not sure what the groundwater districts are doing as far as that goes. So it's really hard to guess of how much they're going to be diverting for recharge at this point in time, along with the diversions. It's like I said, I think the max amount's around that 1,600. That's the number to start with, and just trying to figure out how much water is going to be left over, sort of thing.
Yeah, that helps, Wes. And I'm guessing that includes in-canal and off-site recharge.
That does. That is correct. Obviously, when you go to off-site, which I think we've got to be pretty close with some of those canals, off-site recharge, and I apologize, I should have looked at this before the meeting, but off top of my head, the ones that I know about, I think that kind of tops out around that 500 CFS mark.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think Wesley's right. I mean, I was just looking at what we were doing last year, and we've got pretty good data for in-canal recharge. And I guess in canal and off canal stays around that 1,600 up here until about April 18th. and then begins dropping off pretty rapidly after that.
Okay, that's a data point that we'd like to track, Cooper and Wes.
I'm sorry, what was that, Jeremy?
That's a data point that we'd like to track with you over the next few weeks in those weekly meetings that Brian talked about. Just letting you guys know that that's the type of information that will help us, because 500 is quite a bit different than 1600. It's over a week or so. So
it is, and I get that completely. One of the things I want to kind of reiterate here is, so we'll have really good numbers on what we're doing, but obviously if we're not doing it, we don't have good numbers on that. So I don't know if that would be Water District 1. I'm not quite for sure who would have good, accurate numbers on that.
Yeah, and I might chime in for Water District 1, how we'll be involved in that. So, you know, we will make it a priority to get out and make sure that all the head gates for the canals that are turning on are calibrated and ramp up getting them measured. In other words, as things turn on, Water District 1 will be make it a priority to get out and get the tracking, the instrumentation to track these things rolling. Now, with that said, that's going to be the head of the canals. So, you know, whatever they're doing off-site is something Water District 1 doesn't track. The canals themselves, groundwater districts, track those off-site locations. And also to that, you know, whether there's in-canal recharge or not, also something that Water District 1 doesn't track, but we will be tracking the total diversion at the head.
Craig, what about spills?
Another thing Water District 1 doesn't track is spills out the end of the canals. Again, our administration is for the head gates.
So is that going to give you the information you need, Jeremy, to do all of your calculations?
I think we have ways of accounting for that type of information. But again, I think this is something that needs to be well coordinated and managed, and we want to do it in an organized and mannered way where not everybody turns on 2000 CFS tomorrow out of the river. We kind of want to know what people are doing, when they're going to do it in a scheduled and organized way so that we can operate effectively. Even this morning, I'm seeing canals turn up that didn't give any notification. So just getting a little bit concerned with kind of the way things are potentially going, and want to rein it in if we can. But yes, that helps. Thank you.
And just to confirm, Kevin Lakey with AFRD2 is going to validate his plans for tomorrow with Ryan, and that will dictate exactly how much they're going to start diverting tomorrow, Friday. And we'll, of course, keep everybody notified of those values and plans.
Brian Stevens, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did want to highlight that I'll work on getting the reoccurring meeting set up. So Water District 1, Committee 9, Water Resource Board, and Reclamation can stay in touch, at least have a meeting once a week. I'm sure there's going to be other correspondence, but just so we're talking.
That sounds great from our end.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions, I guess, kind of for the group at this point? Hearing none. The next item on the agenda is new business. Do we want to bring up any new business while we're all together? Hearing nothing, we'll move to adjourn. The next scheduled meeting is May 8th at 10 a.m. So look forward to seeing y'all then. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.